Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Coach Brandt today. Coach, welcome.
Thank you.
So, you coached at Hopkinton for a number of years, but I want to start back to where it all started with your childhood and playing baseball. You grew up in North Dakota, right?
I did. Yeah, I grew up in, well, for that part of the world, was a pretty large community, even though it was probably half the population of what Hopkinton is now. So we were, 2,000 residents, give or take. Um, I lived right in the village there, although we didn't call it a village, we called it a town. And I had older brothers and an older sister, and they were fans, and my older brothers played, and that's how I came to know the game quite young. So they were good mentors for me to start with.
What age did you start playing baseball?
Oh, I think I'm guessing a little bit now,
Okay.
Drew, but I would say that I knew the game by the time I was 5 years old and played pretty regularly by the time I was 8 years old. Most of that was informal. We had a little league summer,
Like a summer league thing?
summer league thing, right? A schedule. There were 4 teams in the community, and they each had about, 12 to 15 players. I played for the Yankees, although our uniforms were gray and yellow. They were Yankee pinstripes. But so that started at age 10, and then Babe Ruth baseball, age 12, Legion baseball after that. But there was no high school baseball where I was at. It was only summer organized ball. Very few communities in the state had school-sponsored baseball.
Do you think that's evolved over time, the spreading of high school sports?
I could only guess at that. I would say that actually in that part of the world,
It's just
it's
because,
growing at one level, maybe at like a semi-professional level. There are a few more teams in the state now, but I would say that participation in baseball for younger players has diminished, but I'm guessing.
all right. What positions did you play?
Well, I was really small when I started and wasn't very accomplished, and so I was kind of stuck in positions where, the ball couldn't find me.
Yeah.
So I played outfield to start with, and then moved to the infield as I got a little older.
Do you remember where exactly in the infield you played?
I played second or short,
Okay.
right? And then I ended up pitching a little bit, mostly because you never have enough arms, and I could get the ball somewhat close to the plate. But I wasn't an accomplished. Well, I was kind of a middle of the roader all the way. Let's say
All
that.
right. All right. And then for college, where'd you end up going for college, and what did you study and playing baseball?
Well, the first 2 years I was at what we would call now a community college. It was a school of forestry in a land of no trees, nonetheless. And the play there, I was able to make the team because, the competition was at a level that I could play at. And after 2 years, when I left the community college and went to the University of North Dakota, I quit baseball in a sense. I didn't try out for the university team. Played some independent ball in the summers, just pickup leagues in southern Canadian communities.
All right.
It's because I lived, where I grew up, we're only 10 miles from the United States-Canadian boundary.
Wow.
So those were Sunday double headers. They were a lot of fun. A lot of times we went up just with 7 players and would just hope to find a couple of other guys that would be around for the day and put them on the team. So that was pretty loose baseball, but it was really enjoyable.
Yeah. Sounds like you had a good time there. What degree were you working towards that whole time?
Well, I started out at the forestry school in Parks and Recreation curriculum, and then when I went to the University of North Dakota, I changed to an English curriculum and ended up with a degree in English. So um, I had a teaching credential that went along with that, and then, um, well, interspersed through all that was some travel, and the travel gave me some other teaching opportunities, and that's how I worked my way through it. Um,
Yeah.
it's too much to retell probably, but that's
Yeah.
the short of it. It was well, I was only needing to think of myself. I wasn't with the family at the time. That was a New Hampshire engagement and family for me. And then with that, well, I just became, well, I was in a new community and had new responsibilities. So the kind of freeloading travel that I had for a while had to stop.
So what brought you to New Hampshire?
Geography.
Geography.
Well, I always liked the Northeast in terms of well, its mountains, its rainforest, its proximity to ocean, and so for a couple of years, bouncing back and forth between north central United States and then northeastern United States. I got to know various places in New England. I came to live for a while in Northwood and worked at a lumber mill in Pittsfield for a couple of years. And that led me to meeting Elaine Brandt, was Elaine Krantz at the time, and then with that, I had to make some career decisions about, well, do I want to stay with this? I'd done some carpentry work with a builder, and I thought of going in that direction. But I came to think, because I'd invested in my degree at school,
Yeah.
that I should take advantage of that investment, and I had my teaching credential and applied for several positions and ended up here at Hopkinton in 1987.
So you taught from 87, and when was your final year teaching here?
Oh,
Doesn't have to be
nine,
exact.
19, no, it'd been 2018. 28, so it's 31 years overall.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, what'd you learn from teaching that you didn't learn from other stuff in your life?
Stress. I'm joking a bit and not so much. Well, I became a better communicator, I think, overall. Trying to help students get at the skills that underlay the English curriculum. You know, that was rigorous work, and not only for them but for me, to think about how best to communicate, you know, well, what was needed to be done to learn those skills. So I would say communication probably was a central part of it.
Okay. So let's get into coaching here. When was the first time you started coaching?
Well, the first year I started teaching here, because the athletic director, Bob Werda at the time, retired and then now deceased, I'm sorry to say, but he came to me and asked if I'd ever played baseball, and I said, yeah, I know the game somewhat. And he said, would you be interested in coaching? And I said, I'll give it a try. Actually, I was in that dugout right over there when our first son, Kyle, was born. We were in the middle of a game, a JV game, and that was the spring of 1988. And the athletic director, Bob, he had to take over for me so I could go to the hospital with Elaine. So, yeah, there's some history there. So
All right.
I had 2 years as a JV coach, and then I had to give that up because teaching and family just didn't leave time for anything else. And then from that, when both Kyle and David were old enough to sign up for Hopkinton Youth Sports Association, you know, the summer program, HISA program, right? Then, well, I volunteered to help out with those leagues and ended up coaching there through their HISA experience. And then left coaching again because, well, Kyle, he didn't play baseball after HISA, and David went on to play middle school ball here and then JV ball here. And when he was a senior in high school, Coach Chase was then the varsity baseball coach. His varsity assistant left, and he came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in helping out, and that I did for the next 13 years.
Yeah.
So was a good run that way.
Yeah, I think you were part of 2 state championship teams. Is that correct? 2012 and 2017, right?
I think there may have been one more in there somewhere. I can't remember. But yeah, we had. Well, we were competitive all the time. Even as a small Division III school, we were always kind of in terms of student population at the lower end of student numbers, and that's good for some things and not others.
Yeah.
I think maybe at one time we had 16 players on a roster, but most of the time we were probably closer to be 12 to 15, you know, and so our numbers just gave everybody, you know, more of a chance to play. But then, of course, it also compromised us because we were always thinking about how we were going to avoid trouble if we ran into pitching problems or illness or injury. So that was kind of a constant, you know, the rostering of players.
Yeah. So what were the major things you learned from coaching?
Well, I think, well, I learned a lot about how much I didn't know. And that was more evident when I was a junior varsity coach because I had to read the rule book thoroughly, and there's too much in there to remember, actually. When I got to the varsity level and was Coach Chase's assistant, I let him do all the rule thinking. He was remarkable that way. I mean, he knew the rules of the game. What did I learn? Well, I learned how important repetition is. You know, practice, practice, practice. And Coach Chase was really good at, you know, keeping players engaged. We had morning practices, morning hitting. We went 6 out of 7 nights a week in the afternoons or evenings. And it's with drill, you know, the going over the fundamentals over and over again. I think that made us a pretty good club overall over the years. And so did I learn anything? Well, I learned it's about finding the time to take the time, to put in the time. You know, it's a lot of hours, and you got to make it so that the players don't think of the clock, right?
Yeah.
Then they're not counting the time that they're on the field. They're out there having some fun. They accept coaching, but you know, you mix it up and you don't do the same thing the same way all the time. There's variety that helps players, you know, approach skills in different ways, right? And keeps their interest on the field.
What are some of your favorite memories from coaching baseball, whether it be, specific games or just moments?
Well, yeah, there's too much to remember. I can remember some remarkable plays. We had a first baseman, Sean, who wasn't a regular but had to fill in as a starter in an away game once over. Well, it could have been Raymond. It could have been the next town over, over in the southeast of
Somersworth?
Yeah, no, that'd have been south farther, but
Okay.
the place isn't. But Sean had a big heart and a so-so glove, but he had 5 foul ball putouts at first base in that game, and boy, well, he really stepped up. Let's say that.
Yeah.
I didn't think that he'd be able to make those plays, but he was on it. So I think, as an example, that's just one of a lot of moments where players made plays that just, well, were remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So too many to recall, I guess, overall.
Where do the state championships rank? Maybe at the top of the list. Do you remember those?
Well, when we won the championship in Division 4, that was quite a ball game in a semifinal. We ended up beating Pittsfield in the final that year down at Fisher Cat Stadium, but the semifinal game was up in it was a northern community.
Was it White Mountains?
Not quite there. Winnipesaukee Lake country, somewhere around there. But
Right.
we had, we don't hit a lot of home runs as Hawks baseball
Yeah.
players, right? But the young McManus player, there were 3 brothers, and they were all real good ball players. But the youngest one hit 2 home runs in that game. The last of which hit the top of a fence like this, like a
Shorter fence?
well, yeah, maybe a little taller than that, but a right field dinger that hit the top of the fence and actually went over and not backwards, and that gave us the win. So that was a surprise, wonderful, but a good memory. I think another memory was, we had the rival from down below Manchester, the Cougars. What's their
Campbell.
Campbell, yeah. And in that championship game again at Fisher Cats, a great pitching performance, but maybe a better slide into home plate by a young player, Matt Gleason, who gave us the lead in that game and gave us the momentum to hold on. That was a great play, and he ended up being a pinch runner from third base on that play, so even more remarkable, I guess. So I don't know. The championships were kind of icing on the cake, but more of it was the day-to-day activity. And then I remember this. It was always the ending of a season always seems so sudden. Because you're in it for weeks, and then all of a sudden it's over, right? It's just,
Yeah.
and then you got to wait for another year to get back out on the field again. But
I can relate. Yeah.
yeah.
So, Coach, what is your advice to people who want to be successful in the game, whether it's as a player or as a coach?
Well, I think being willing, and I kind of hinted at this earlier if I didn't outright say it, being willing to put in the time. Put in the time to commit to, well, what practice requires, what thinking about the game requires, the travel time that's there, time away from other activities that you have responsibilities for, whether it's, homework or family, things like that. So I think the acceptance of the commitment is part of it. You can't go at it kind of half-heartedly and hope that you're going to be successful. You can be a participant in a lot of different ways, but if you want to be successful, I think really it comes down to a time commitment.
All right. So, some of the final questions I have for you today. What makes a good coach?
Well, I think he's respectful, or she's respectful. I don't have experience with female players, only to be observant or to watch them, particularly here at the high school. But respectful of them, and then help them be respectful of the game.
And what makes a program successful?
I think that the time that coaches are willing to put in, and the way that they persuade players to follow along that way. It's about time commitment. Things don't just happen because you want them to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you can dream about stuff, but then execution is the other part of that. Can you perform? And it is about performance. It's about having fun with the game, whether you win or lose.
For sure. Coach, thanks for your time. I appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you, Joe.